Across the state, tens and thousands of people work as sidewalk vendors, selling food and merchandise on public sidewalks or in our public parks. Many of our local governments impose an outright prohibition on all sidewalk vending, while others impose erroneous restrictions that severely limit and regulate vendors to our underground economy. We have to really start having a conversation and start seeing these hardworking people for who they are. They are women, seniors, single parents, and micro business owners taking their first step to starting their own businesses. They don't come looking for any type of handout. The food and goods they are selling is the difference between feeding their families, paying their rent, or becoming homeless. The goal of this bill is to protect vulnerable sidewalk vendors and create a new opportunity for entrepreneurship and economic mobility.
Hello, my name is India Weeks, and I just want to say how much I appreciate the City Council and the Mayor. I was born and raised here, as were my children. And I want to thank the Mayor and the City Council, especially today, for implementing SB 946. It's been a huge success down at the Stanton Plaza with crafters, artisans, artists, and even a magician vending at the Stanton Plaza. And we've been there for 5 years now and become quite a close family.
My name is Shai. My wife grew up in this county, so we was about to sign a lease for a shop in Carmel before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we almost lost everything that we have. I think that vending was the opportunity that saved our life here, give us the chance to feed our kids and pay our rent and live with dignity.
My name is Mira Nisim. I'm a local to this area. I went through Carmel Unified from kinder through high school. I'm a teacher. I hold a master's degree and a bachelor's degree. I convinced my husband to move back here because I had a teaching position, and then COVID started. My teaching job was gone, and we quickly had to figure out what to do. Vending has been the way that we support our family, and we are grateful for the City of Monterey for allowing us to vend at the Stanton Plaza, and thank you to the state of California that allows vending to happen because it is a vibrant business.
My name is Scott. I've been a street vendor for 15 years, and I just like to say, before I was a street vendor, I was homeless due to an accident, from an accident. So being a street vendor has really quite literally saved my life, I think.
My name is Marina, and I've been a vendor at the Stanton Plaza for about 5 or 6 years. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for making that possible. And it's been really helpful. The economy is really expensive, and street vending helps me to pay for like a $300 asthma medicine and other medicines that I would not be able to afford to buy.
I'm a vendor at the Stanton Plaza near Fisherman's Wharf, and without the ability to be a vendor or a small business owner, my wife and I will almost be likely on the streets. So as a sidewalk vendor, we are able not only to live and keep a roof over our heads, but vending allows us to continue being a part of this wonderful community.
It's not easy to vend every day. When you're doing it, you're dealing with the weather, you're dealing with many hard things that come in on the way. Is the sun, the wind, they bring your tables in and out.
But other than that, it's really a family environment because we really take out our time to tell people where the aquarium is, like other vendors already mentioned, and where the restaurants are, the whale-watching boats. We literally go to the parking lot because a lot of people are confused how to use these electronic phones, how to pay for the parking.
We are the owners, we work there, and we every day are bringing something exciting and attractive to the wharf area. We're sometimes the first people to welcome them out of the parking. We tell them where the best restaurants are. We tell them about the farmers market and the other attractions that happen in the main plaza in Monterey.
We keep the artist colony tradition of Monterey alive. We add vibrance and color to the tourist experience. My booth is a beautiful art installation. It is photographed daily. I have customers that come just for me, and then they go eat on the wharf. We increase tourism, and we increase the economy downtown.
I feel that we are some kind of a stand of tourist information and guide these people to the whale watch, to the boats, to the restaurant. We bring in a lot of color to the wharf.
We're directing people, we're helping them, we tell them where the bathrooms are, and we also are making a livelihood. We're selling our wares that we're making ourselves, and we're keeping people happy and enlivened. We're also helping the local unhoused to keep them calm in that area for the most of the day. We're giving them compassion and empathy, sometimes helping them with food, sometimes giving them blankets and clothing as well. We make sure that that area stays peaceful for the rest of the business that operate in the wharf. I just want to say it's more than just vending.
I've been asked to address you today by vendors who don't speak English or are afraid to come forward themselves. On behalf of them and myself, we need your help again.
When I renewed my permit last year, I was told in verbal communication only to write down one table instead of 5 tables. I actually use, and I have been using for almost 3 years. Not only was I instructed to write down one table, but I also submit a picture of only one table in order to receive my vendor's permit.
Senior planners have been misrepresenting the city code restrictions to certain vendors, not all, just some people are being targeted. We don't know why. We are told there is a 1 table restriction. There is no such restriction in the city code or in the state law. The city council did not vote on this rule change, and yet senior planners have been enforcing it for over a year. Some vendors, not all, have been forced into signing a contract to have 1 table. No one can survive or make a living off 1 table. And if they don't sign the contract, then their permit renewal is withheld.
I felt a sense of entrapment and forced to lie on my application, not only to obtain my permit, but to make some type of living just to survive.
We are asking you to let us keep providing to our family with dignity and respect. This is the only way that we can bring food for the table and feed our families. We paying our taxes and we're doing everything that we can to be nice to the community. We are asking you to give us the opportunity to keep doing it.
Over the past month, to my knowledge, there has been more discussion circulating that the planning department intends to enforce an impounded 1 table rule. 1 table is not enough to survive in their situation.
I don't know if it's legal to trick people into signing their rights away in a misleading contract, but I do know that it's wrong. The anguish that these good, hardworking people have suffered is just unconscionable.
I'm a small business owner. I have a tax ID submitted, require documentation, and contribute financially by paying taxes every quarter. I have read the description of a vendor in the Senate Bill 946. It does not state limitations on vendors being able to earn a living.
I'm terrified in the last few weeks with hearing all the ideas that people trying to shut us down, business owners and people with a lot of power, and we asking you to give us the opportunity to keep feeding our kids and our families.
I just wanted to kind of briefly address, we heard from a lot of vendors, and we passed a policy on street vending maybe 5-6 years ago. I can't remember, but if staff feels like we need to modify that, I think it should come back to council. But I do think in the meantime, we need to be processing people's requests for permits based on the current policy. But anyway, so I look forward to hearing more about that. That's really all I have to say. I do think that's something we need to address.
I appreciate you saying that, because I was going to make a comment myself in regards to that. I think it's important that the council has an opportunity to weigh in regards to what the changes look like there, and it might be helpful to have an update from staff in regards to exactly maybe some background in regards to what's going on. I don't think we maybe have a full picture of what's happening there. So thank you, Councilmember Hopper, for bringing that up.
Push cart to storefront was once the American dream. But now we live in a time of corporate domination that has homogenized our culture. Everyone everywhere is surrounded by the same malls, shopping in the same stores, eating the same food. And street vending is a way to overcome this. We're the lowest rung on the economic ladder. We're the startups. We're the sole proprietors. We are the owner-operated business people. We are the step-in for the self-motivated. The reward for hard work and talent is the basic foundation of a meritocracy. We've all watched the destruction of Main Street by the online shopping, by the pandemic, corporate consolidation, corporate domination of the job market, and soon the housing market. You know, they have no plan to provide for us all. They downsize and offshore to maximize their profits. This is where we step in. We're the grassroots. We keep the money in the community. We support our local restaurants, our shops. We support each other. A dollar given to us has a good chance of staying in our community. What's the dollar spent at a chain store? It's just gone. What kind of relationship building do you get with a McDonald's, Costco, Target, or Home Depot worker? We are more than merchants. We're the eyes and ears of the street. We know who needs help. We know who is making trouble. We keep the place clean. We connect people. We pass on info. We help people pay their parking. We give directions. We crack jokes. We wish them well. Moods are contagious. We create the environment of connectivity. We've seen a teenage girl come out of her nervous shell in a young adulthood, making her goods under her dad's watchful eye. We have a ringmaker who dreams of a store so he could have a workshop, climate control in his own bathroom. We're small businesses who are growing. I know rock sellers who are becoming jewelers because they saved up to buy a saw and they polish and do their own stones.
My name is Athena Zunizo. My husband and I vend at the wharf. I am extremely disturbed at the fact, even since the last time we've been here, people are being told still to put one table listed.
My name is India Weeks, and I still don't have a vending permit. I was told by the chief planner, Levi Hill, that the legal department is making him use definitions of a vendor and substituting them for regulations. Definitions are a description of what is being regulated, and regulations are rules that the citizens live by. Definitions are not regulations, and descriptions are not the same thing as rules.
In the documentation, it states if we misrepresent ourselves, that our permits can be automatically voided. So basically, by the time we get our permit, we're already voiding ourselves out if we accept those terms.
This is my first time here. I apologize for my English, but I can speak 3 different languages, Arabic or Italian or Spanish. It's up to you guys, but I'm here for the same problem.
The description of a vendor is someone who sells from a cart, table, stand, or rack. So legal has decided to use the definition to tell vendors they can only have one table or rack. That is a gross misreading of the code, and it also not only violates city, but also state law.
I was here on the last meeting, and my preoccupation right now is I have to renew my permit this month for city vendors. And I'm asking for advice. Should I lie and say only one table? Should I take a picture of only one table? Or should I put all my tables to apply for the permit? I know it's going to be denied, and I'm worried because that's my only income. I'm on retirement right now.
And I just want clarification, if possible. Do we stick ourselves in a situation to perjure ourselves, become desperate, and be at the mercy of something that has not been legally decided on? So we know how to fill out our form when we renew our permit next month.
Definitions are stated in the singular. There's many places in the city code where it says, a homeowner, a boat owner, a fisherman, a business owner. And the reason that things are stated in the singular is so that everybody who owns just one of those things still falls under the purview of the law and can be regulated. So it does not mean that no one inside the city of Monterey can own only one of those things.
I start from $50. Now, thanks to God, I have a business and I have another work.
I was told by Levi Hill to send a picture of a single rack when I have a stand. And he said that he isn't going to permit metal stands anymore because there's a space on the top that could be used as a shade structure. But I know that he permitted another metal stand just a week before he told me that.
And one table at the wharf to selling my stuff. I cannot do in this. I'm trying to grow up honestly with clean business, with helping everybody, with make everybody happy. So I'm here asking you, please try to help us to not have only one table, because one table we cannot. we cannot do anything. We cannot do anything.
So I really feel that it's an absolute fact that my husband and I have been singled out because we are speaking up for a lot of vendors who can't speak up for themselves. And so we've been targeted, and the rules are ever changing. When we want to get our permit, we can't.
And I mentioned this last time, but I do think it makes sense for staff to work with vendors and other interest groups to make sure that it works for those vendors. Clearly they're hardworking people, and I do think they contribute to the ambiance of the wharf. But I think we want to make sure we address this and help people get their permits. In the meantime, we should be making sure people get their permits. And if we have to fix things for the future, then let's do that.
What makes a professional? Well, a professional gets paid and may have a license. Professionals acquire licenses by promising to meet professional standards, like attorneys have a license to practice law. But if they're found to be unethical or incompetent, then attorneys lose their license. Like a planner gets certified, but that certification can be taken away if a planner can't read or enforce a code. This is how professional life works. It takes time to obtain these powerful positions, and it's devastating when someone has their license revoked. My livelihood is being threatened, and the professionals involved have shown no concern. It's like they decided to revoke my license to vend, my certificate to make and sell goods. But as a vendor, I don't have a professional board to come to my defense. All I have is a permit process, and it better not require me to misstate facts under penalty of perjury in order to get my permit renewed. I know about legal history. I know how contracts work. Judges were originally called judges because they judged the fairness of contracts. And if a contract was found to be unfair, then the judge negated it. That was when it was called courts of justice. But today, judges don't judge contracts. Instead, they enforce contracts. And that is why the powerful use the courts of law to oppress the unsophisticated with take it or leave it contracts. Once signed, the signee has no one to appeal to. It's over. They signed the contract. That is what our planning department is doing. They have tricked people with no legal understanding, those with poor English skills, to contract out of their rights by forcing them to sign one table, take it or leave it contracts as a condition of vendor permit renewal. It's wrong when civil servants serve private interests. It undermines the public trust. We all know the wharf businesses have an economic animus towards sidewalk vendors. So I ask you, our elected lawmakers, to control your professional staff. You are the bosses. I expect you to take action. I expect my vendor permit to be renewed without me being forced to perjure myself. If ethics review committees have to be contacted, then maybe it won't be my livelihood that gets revoked.
Street vendors, we are planning actually for a town hall meeting that we have penciled in right now for September 9th. September 11, I'm sorry, on 9/11, on September 11. So that is already squared away. Of course, this is still all in draft form, but we'll make the appropriate announcement when we are ready to officially set everything up. You might have heard about the topic of street vending in front of Wharf Number 1. There is a law that the state of California passed, SB 946, and that basically told cities how to avoid regulating street vendors. The idea behind that was the state wanted to allow folks to create small businesses on sidewalks, to provide additional income for them, and to provide opportunities for those who are specializing, let's say, in street vending. There may be areas where the spreading out of sales, tables, etc., may conflict with pedestrian wanting to enjoy the scenery, maybe also the bike riders adjacent on the rec trail. So over the next couple of weeks and months, we will start continued dialogues with interested parties about street vending. We will also
In the 1980s, corporate offshoring wiped out the labor market for manufacturing jobs. And in the 1990s, corporate downsizing drastically shrunk the number of middle management jobs. Now in the 2020s, AI is going to wipe out the corporate market for the professional class. Lawyers, accountants, architects, planners, no longer going to be needed in the large numbers. So in this world of corporate dominance, where the pursuit of profits and efficiency always translates into less workers, where is the new job market going to grow to catch these displaced people? This is why we're now embarking on an economic revolution. Talking about SB 946.
I wanted to give you an international perspective on street vending because I know that the plaza in Monterey has so much potential, and I know that it could just be, a diamond if we're just polished a little bit. The artists that set up in Montmartre in Paris, people come for that, and the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul is one of the most famous markets in the world, and a lot of that is open air too. And so I think that the vendors in Monterey, if we change our perspective and we look at it as a positive that creates jobs and creates more tourism and creates multiculturalism that's hard to find sometimes in Monterey. I counted off 11 countries that are represented by the vendors down there. So there's a multicultural aspect that's really precious. There's also an economic opportunity there that's really precious.
This is a legal revolution as significant as the federal laws which tore down the racial segregation laws that had been enforced by city managers, city attorneys, and planning departments across the country. Make no mistake, this is a legal revolution for civil rights. In the land of opportunity, no land means no opportunity. I call it the lowest rung of the economic ladder of sole proprietors. And this means we street vendors are on the ladder and we're pulling ourselves up.
The city code mandates that we have to be on tables with only an umbrella and no shade structure is allowed. Being spread out on tables is not the most space efficient or the most attractive way for somebody to vend their wares. So if shade structures were allowed, then you would get this vertical display, which would be a lot more compact. It would allow for more vendors. It would allow for more space. And it would just look a lot neater and tidier. And I think to that end, if we had shade structures, we would look exactly like a craft festival.
Greedy landlords destroy our communities. They compete with each other to see who can get the highest rent. This leaves our town full of empty homes, empty storefronts, empty schools, empty playgrounds. Even city workers who service this community can't afford to live here. To think powerful people claim to be civic-minded are against allowing a grassroots economy to blossom? Whose purposes are they serving if they're dead set against the little guy?
And so I hope that we'll have a seat at the table so that everybody can have the positive feelings that I have.
In government, there's a hierarchy of authority. The lowest rung is city staff. The city manager and community director exist to be told what to do by the city council. They are your lieutenants who carry out your orders within the law. The city council is elected lawmakers who can initiate their own programs or implement suggestions proposed by public citizenry. Then comes the county. Then comes the state. The state is the giant in the room. The state can mandate what cities do. I hope to make Monterey a sidewalk vending model for other communities to emulate and imitate.
I thought the idea of a craft fair model, I think that's a really interesting idea. And I'm just wondering if we can't look at what are sort of the guidelines, if there's craft festival out there that people think looks good. And then also, again, just to encourage staff, please to reach out to the vendors, make sure that they are included in any discussions as we move forward.
I'm Wendy Brickman, president of Fisherman's Wharf Association.
My name is Sherry. I'm a member of Fisherman's Wharf Association.
My name is Rodney Riggs. I'm a member of the Fisherman's Wharf Association.
I'm a small owner and co-chair of the CRBA.
And I'd like to talk about the increase of sidewalk vendors on the causeway near Old Fisherman's Wharf.
When we bring these street vendors in, I'd rather not see them, honestly, because I think it detracts from the beauty of Monterey, what it is.
We encourage city staff and council to work closely with the business district.
The stuff they sell, I don't know, maybe it's me personally, but I don't like a lot of it.
It is appropriate to limit the number of permits for sidewalk vendors,
limiting the number of permits
and size limitations,
space and table size.
Please follow the policy of one table.
Adopting and regulating assigned locations.
and assign locations for the sidewalk vendors
to reduce overcrowding in popular high traffic areas.
Good evening, City Council of Monterey. My name is Abraham Zabala. I'm an advocacy associate with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. We co-sponsored both sidewalk vending bills, SB 972 and SB 946, which effectively decriminalized sidewalk vending, and most importantly, provided street vendors with a path to permits. We were recently in LA involved in a lawsuit in Los Angeles to repeal no vending zones. The case upheld that cities cannot create no vending zones. On Sunday, I walked the Monterey Wharf, met Athena, India, a few other vendors, Jimmy. The level of organization was amazing. I did not see the city out there, but I did see vendors actively helping each other out and understanding the Monterey ordinance for sidewalk vending. What I found amazing was the majority of organized vendors use cashless apps that include local sales tax in their transactions, which I've never come across any vending area that does that. And I've been in LA, Anaheim, San Francisco, other places. So definitely vendors there are ahead of the curve. And just wanted to remind folks that, any regulation outside of both SB 946 and 972 can be, create difficulties for cities as they try to enforce certain things that are unlawful. For example, restricting permits is not allowed within the state bill. Regulating and restricting vending out of public animus is also unlawful. It must be done out of safety and health reasons. These are merchandise vendors, where, like I said, are super organized. I've never come across an area of folks who have the leadership to ensure that new vendors who arrive understand Monterey ordinances. A lot of cities are doing education first. In this case, vendors are doing education first, educating each other, educating business people, educating, code enforcers.
We all know the formal economy has been having a hard time, and there's massive layoffs, store closures. We don't see massive hirings, store openings. So as a protective measure, communities have to start developing their own local economy.
Hans Usler, Kimberly Cole, and Levi Hill, I want to thank you guys so much for taking a meeting with us vendors. We really appreciate your time and your willingness to hear our concerns and our ideas and some of our practical advice from people who know the terrain.
As City Council, we need to focus on creating more areas to facilitate that type of prosperity. In other words, we need to start creating a job base not dependent on corporations who could just close up shop because decision makers 1,000 miles away realize it's best for their bottom line. These same decision makers are also automating. You see it in the checkout stands. Just like the ATMs of the 1990s got rid of our local bank tellers, these checkout stands are getting rid of our local cashiers. What I'm saying is we have to grow a grassroots economy, and sidewalk vending is the way to do it.
I want to thank Abraham Zavala Rodriguez from the Western Center on Law and Poverty for coming and attending that meeting with us. He brought with him years of experience in organizing and empowering street vendors.
Sidewalk vending not only creates the space for people to sell the things they make, it also provides public space for locals to meet up week after week and make connections. You let 3 vendors set up, and I can guarantee you a musician and a performer will spontaneously appear and put on a show, because this is where people gather.
And our collaboration with the Western Center for Law and Poverty has given us all kinds of new strategies, community organizing ideas.
The city needs to grow the grassroots economy in areas that are most congested. We have created such an area down at the Stanton Center. Locals are hanging out and making friendships and spending their money. And we vendors are generating our own city revenues. We pay for permits. We pay for parking. We pay sales tax, meaning the city is spending nothing on us, and we're generating tens of thousands of dollars.
Unfortunately, because of weather constraints, this vending season is basically over. So there's very few vendors left to talk to about the kind of changes that we want to make or the new ideas we want to go forward with.
So now we have called the Western Center on Law and Poverty to help us in Monterey. They're coming off their huge legal victory against the city of Los Angeles. And we didn't call them here to sue the city of Monterey. We called them here to help us vendors organize and self-regulate based on the wisdom that other vendors in other communities are doing.
The high season is the June and July is what most people are concerned about. And within June and July, there's just Saturday and Sunday when there's a lot of vendors, when kind of this stuff has to be figured out about who's set up where and how closely we're set up to each other. So I would recommend that for now we do nothing. I would recommend that we don't touch the ordinance at this time.
And it's been 5 years. We're just getting our legs under us. All we're saying is give us a chance.
Give us a chance to regulate ourselves, because now we have an organization behind us who's going to give us more insight and strategies to organize ourselves. Thank you so much.
Regarding this sidewalk vending, and I know that staff is currently working on a plan to figure out what next steps look like there. So I just ask folks to stay tuned for that. We will be moving forward with some deeper discussions, and we'll make sure that all stakeholders are able to participate in that process.
As far as the bike rentals that you're expanding to, is there a maximum number that you are allowing, or is it just going to be however many?
No limitation is being proposed with this amendment.
So if 100 of them apply, you would have 100 of them on Cannery Row or the community commercial.
As proposed.
Has anyone been on the bike path on Saturday or Sunday and had the word safe come to mind? I don't think so. It's a raceway. The electric bikes have only made it worse.
And I think the high-speed bicyclists probably that are the electronic moving bicyclists are the biggest problem.
Monterey is a little bit of the Wild West if you've been out there. There's some people riding really fast on there.
There's points in the trail that it narrows. There's points in the trail that probably needs more signage. And of course, you know, when you want more safety, are you really asking for more enforcement?
I would encourage you guys to, as you're progressing forward, take a look at the rules in Monterey.
My sense of the high speeders bicyclists those are more local folks than they are tourists.
PG addressed that. They added a 12-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I think that solved a lot of things.
But we need to assess the problem. So I think it starts with an analysis. It's looking back at what are our accidents, where are they? So for tonight's action, I don't see the thought about safety being necessarily encumbering a decision tonight.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. First reading of sidewalk vending ordinance update.
State law, SB 946, which required cities to lay out a framework to allow sidewalk vending. And noted in that state law is that it creates important entrepreneurship and economic development opportunities to low income and immigrant communities, contributes to a dynamic public space, and increases access to desired goods and culturally significant food and merchandise. 2019, the City Council adopted Ordinance 3606, and that's what put into place or established the city's citywide sidewalk vending regulations.
So here's a short summary of the proposed amendments, looking at limiting the space for individual vendors to 32 square feet. We see a lot of vendors employing more than one table. Display of goods would be limited to 28 to 34 inches from the ground. That prevents vendors from hanging them from higher objects. As far as location requirements go, what's being proposed is 10 feet from any driveways, marked crosswalks, 15 feet from other vendors, any fountain, statue, or monument, and then 25 feet from the heads of Wharf 1 or 2, and then 25 feet from the center line of the recreation trail. So we did have a town hall where we advertised to our vendor community as well as those business owners at the wharf.
Everything in the proposed code changes is prohibited by state law. The motivation for the code change is economic animus from local business owners. In fact, attached to this meeting's agenda on the internet, there are 4 letters from wharf business owners. This is also prohibited by state law.
I did notice that there was letters added, not just from business associations, but just from business owners to the agenda. And I'm wondering, how is it determined which items get added to the agenda versus the public portal where public comments are uploaded? It's a procedural thing, and we can maybe talk offline about that. I just wanted to make sure that we have consistency.
There is a desire from the vendors, so requested for increased enforcement from the city code enforcement, specifically pertaining to people leaving equipment or tables overnight.
We did also hear from representatives from the Wharf Association that supported the concept of some increased regulations.
I'm Wendy Brickman, Executive Director of the Fishermen's Wharf Association.
My name is Sherry Tuioti, and I'm a local resident of Monterey and a small business owner on Fisherman's Wharf.
Rick Aldinger, Monterey County Hospitality Association, and a resident.
We received written correspondence as well from the Old Monterey Business Association and members of the Cannery Row Business Association that supported the draft ordinance.
I asked AI and I said, can economic animus of business owners be considered when regulating sidewalk vending? No, sidewalk vending regulations cannot be based on economic animus or perceived community animus toward the vendors. The Safe Sidewalking Act, SB 946 in California, specifically prohibits this.
We need to ensure that the sidewalk vendors are not overcrowded.
I don't think it's safe to have an unlimited number of vendors.
The area in question is very popular, heavily used by a variety of people.
As you see, it's a pretty constrained space. It's roughly, I think it's a little over 3,000 square feet that's left there.
The state law prohibits local businesses for speaking up. So the fact even that their letters were attached to the agenda, that's not legal.
I was especially concerned when I saw a woman shopping with a baby stroller, stopped on the rec trail with electric bikes whizzing by at high speeds, and a small mistake by either the mother or the child sticking its arm out or the bicyclist could have resulted in a tragedy.
I would like to request that these safety hazards be looked at in a factual and not anecdotal way.
Safetiness is all vendors' priority since 2018. 6.5 years, there has not been one accident in the vendor area. The same cannot be said about the non-vendor areas, which proves that we are safety conscious and doing a good job.
Safety has nothing to do with this. I really don't think it does, as there's never been an accident in the 4 years I've been there.
I've seen the complaints. They're all from people on the wharf that feel like we might be in competition, that feel that the aesthetics may or may not change their business, but there's no facts stating it.
And particularly for the safety of all of the users of that area.
Health and safety, I can't call health and safety off the top of my head. You got to pay for a study. You're going to have to go and get experts.
My name is Julia Estelle. I'm a Monterey resident, a local artist, and a small business owner. I'm here because the proposed ordinance changes threaten my ability to make a living in my own hometown. Other businesses have complained that we obstruct pedestrian flow, block views, compete unfairly with other businesses. But where is their evidence?
Business owners are discriminating against vendors, and they have been from the very beginning.
There's a false narrative that we are unregulated. We are licensed, insured, taxed, and fingerprinted annually. Can the same be said of the employees of the businesses that are complaining about us?
The concerns raised about visual obstruction, aesthetic disruption, and competition with established businesses are nothing new. These arguments are often used to prioritize commercial entrance over human dignity. But where are the data proving that us vendors are causing health, safety, or welfare concerns?
And what about enforcement? There's one code enforcement officer on weekdays, but not weekends when we are busiest. When was the last time there was any proactive effort to enforce the current rules?
This past weekend, I witnessed a city official and a business owner taking pictures of the vendors. And even though there were 4 vendors violating city ordinance, the city official didn't issue any citations. It appears like this official is a part of a business association which hunt towards all sidewalk vendors.
We already are self-policing, self-regulating, as we stated before, because no one else is there to enforce the codes, not during the week and definitely not in the weekend.
Most of the work they're doing is towards the business association and the business owners. They're not doing anything for us, the planning department.
Okay, these guys last year were making vendors who had poor English skills, had no legal understanding, have to sign an agreement that they had one table, even though they had 4 tables or 3 tables, and submit a picture of only one table on a legal document that said it's perjury if you don't tell the truth.
Anthony Lombardo, sometimes when people threaten to sue you if you do something, it means you're doing the right thing. And I would say in this case, what the staff is proposing is the right thing. The staff didn't invent these standards. They took them from ordinances that are existing in other jurisdictions that have not been challenged.
When legislation is passed and signed into law, there has to be a test case. And this is when the court decides what is and what isn't legal. And we had that test case for SB 946 last July in LA, and we vendors won.
As neither the city nor the complaining businesses have offered any evidence to support their claims, I have filed a Public Records Act request to obtain real information on emergency calls for services to those affected areas, and I'll happily share that with the council.
Are we protecting scenic views, or are we protecting interests from Fishermen's Wharf Association? Are we regulating public space, or are we evicting cultural and economic vibrancy in favor of sanctionized tourist zones? This is a pivotal moment for the city of Monterey, and we must decide whether to stand with small vendors, immigrants, artists, and families, or yield to the pressure of exclusionary commerce and gentrification.
Gary Curcio, Director of Government Affairs for the Monterey County Hospitality Association.
My name is Lance Kohler, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Canada Business Association.
My name is Monica Lal. I'm calling from the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having this considerate and important discussion on the economic impacts of the wharf.
Our members, businesses, are receiving a tough deal on this simply because, again, going back to access.
And as for competition, this is a public space. Isn't our free market economy based on competition? We may not have a storefront, but we have every right to earn a living.
Yes, Lorna Moffat. I think to say that the vendors are blocking traffic, I mean, that's absurd because that area is just filled with speeding bikes and people and traffic, and no one is doing anything about it. We just all seem to maneuver and manage quite well. These people have as much right to be there as the business owners have a right to have their shops. And I think there's a real secretive competition going that wants these vendors gone. So I say, leave it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see, and they're happy and they're making their living. What a nice thing.
The CRBA supports the staff's recommendation and encourages the council to approve them as presented.
So the staff recommendation is actually fair to all parties affected. And we urge the council to accept this recommendation.
I support the staff recommendation to take a look at the ordinance and update the ordinance to make it common sense and with safety.
To all of you, I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you for your time and for your thoughtful process as you reorganize and update the existing sidewalk bending regulations.
And I fully support the staff report and encourage the city council to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 32 of the Monterey City Code relating to sidewalk bending regulations.
Everything that's happening here is being done for business owners on the wharf. They cannot be considered when talking about regulating street vendors.
You're the victims of your own success. We do love the vendors. This is important that people not lose their jobs and not lose their homes and not lose their housing. Okay, this is a commitment on this entire council to that end.
As someone who says that he supports small business, I'm invested in making sure that this works for everyone involved. I like the idea of making the spaces more standard size.
Has there been an attempt to identify other areas in the city that are very popular? Well, and I'm thinking across from the aquarium, around San Carlos Beach, the Dust Bowl, Del Monte Beach. What are the possibilities?
If the council was inclined to adopt the ordinance as drafted, the first step we would take is to physically identify how many vendor spaces we can actually fit in that location. And then from there, we haven't formalized a process as far as check-in or sign in at the beginning of the day. but we can do that without, on an administrative level, rather than putting that in the ordinance and kind of see what works and what makes sense and functions well.
How many vendors currently set up average?
We issue on average about 33 sidewalk vending permits, but it seems to be a steady amount on the weekends in the 20s, somewhere in just below 20 or maybe just above 20.
There is a little bit of a question there for staff, actually. What is the plan proposal as it relates to enforcement?
We will enforce.
What,
Yes, Mayor, we will enforce with using.
Tell me the plan. What's the plan to enforcement? What does that look like?
We will enforce using the code compliance officer to conduct checks about the implemented ordinance with spacing, etc. Planning manager Levi Hill explained that we will have enhanced enforcement on that side. The area is monitored 24/7 by Harbor Patrol and Harbor Security, and those folks will play also a role in ensuring that the enforcement is active there.
We don't want to maybe be too specific as to not get folks to anticipate when staff is going to be there.
There will be unannounced code compliance checks on weekends, so there will be also other checks that we conduct in the middle of the week.
There's got to be a better way to be able to serve our vendors.
Clearly, this is an emotional topic, particularly for the vendors that are impacted on the proposed policy. Maybe we can hear more public comment when this comes back around for the second reading. Look, I see a couple of hands going up in the public. No. This is not a time for any additional public comment. So no comments from the public right now. This is not the time for it. Excuse me. No. Next time somebody speaks out in public comment, I'm going to ask you to leave.
There's a couple of things happening here, I think. We're putting a number of spots, which the ordinance doesn't right now designate. It does have dimensions and criteria.
Yeah, we have an estimate right now.
We have an estimate right now. So we can pass this. The council can pass this tonight and then have a second reading, and this ordinance could go into effect in 30 days.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff recommendation to include the reduction of spacing between vendor tables to 10 feet and to allow staff to have ministerial approval over determining the sign-up process for the spaces at the mouth of the wharf.
Second. Don't be fooled. There's nothing more going on more here than just rigging the local economy.
Council unanimously passing an ordinance to regulate sidewalk vendors near the wharf, Fisherman's Wharf. The vendors have become an issue near the entrance and on the rec trail. Crowding, there's limited space. It's become an issue. The ordinance will limit the number of vendors, how much space they can occupy, and have separation requirements.
We had a longer conversation about sidewalk vending in the city of Monterey. There were a lot of sidewalk vendors that were showing up, and they were expressing their concerns about the street vending ordinance that we are proposing in order to create also some more safety buffers. In the end, the council, after listening to the pros and cons, because we also had other residents, businesses speaking about the necessity to regulate certain things. The council voted to approve the first reading.
So before we go into general public comment, I just wanted to share with folks that we're going to table the sidewalk vendor discussion. We can't have a dialogue with the public on the council, unfortunately.
With the arguments coming from other businesses, I feel some of my civil liberties have been stepped on or crushed. I've had businesses say that we don't belong here. And it's very frustrating how over 100 in 1906. Something we talked about earlier. The Chinese people ran out of those locations. I feel like I don't want to be repeating history and having to be moving on somewhere else.
We also talked yesterday briefly about the sidewalk vending ordinance. We are looking into some other suggestions that were made and hopefully can tie this all nicely up.
We will go to general public comments.
The purpose of the Safe Sidewalk Vending Bill 946, it was enacted to decriminalize the act of working outside the corporate structure and outside the corporate economy in what's called the informal economy. I quote, "The Safe Sidewalk Vending Act was enacted to decriminalize sidewalk vending in California. The primary reason for enacting this law were to promote entrepreneurship, especially for low-income and immigrant communities."
After the chilling April 15th performance of the city manager telling the mayor how he would enforce his illegal sidewalk ordinance changes, I had expert vendor attorneys from Pro Council who helped write SB 946 speak with your staff. After the hour-long meeting ended with your city manager, he commanded me to rewrite the ordinance. So here's my 5-part proposal that meets the requirements set by state law. First, move the planters in our area. The current locations cause unnecessary congestion and block the public's use of trash receptacles. 2, pick up the city trash. Currently, the city is failing to adequately service this area. Us vendors have got the state park workers emptying city trash cans. 3, pick up the tables left overnight. The existing sidewalk code is not being enforced. We've had to self-regulate because city staff has failed to enforce the code already on the books. 4, mark the bike path. Class 1 bike path that runs alongside the Custom House Plaza has no defining marks. And 5, issue a comprehensive map of vendor spots. Council members Rash and Garcia both propose staff identify areas where permit holding, insurance carrying sidewalk vendors can set up. For the last 6 years, it's fallen on us sidewalk vendors to educate, self-regulate, and work as de facto safety and code enforcement officers.
With that, we will go to our evening session items. The first reading of the sidewalk vending ordinance update.
We, staff, as well as I think all of you members of the council, recognize and acknowledge that many of the vendors rely on sidewalk vending as a primary source of income and their livelihoods.
At the April 15th City Council meeting, staff presented a proposed draft ordinance for first reading. That ordinance passed its first reading at that meeting. And those changes, which I'll summarize in more detail in a moment, were scheduled for second reading at the May 6th City Council meeting. And as Nat mentioned, it was tabled so that staff could meet with an attorney group who reached out on behalf of some of the vendors.
In 2018, we were part of a campaign to legalize vending in California. Through a coalition that we worked in, that was accomplished, but shortly thereafter, the city of LA created its own vending regulations and ordinance.
Street vendors in Los Angeles are fighting for their livelihood. They are suing the city for setting up no vending zones in some pretty popular areas of the city.
That includes the Hollywood Walk of Fame, LA Live, Universal Studios, and more.
LA Superior Court is set to issue a ruling on street vendors. In a tentative ruling, the judge said he's leaning toward allowing a coalition of street vendors suing the city over its no vending zone ordinance. The city says allowing sidewalk vending forces pedestrians to walk in the street. Street vendors say the ordinance is in conflict with a state law that decriminalized street vending.
All of those are areas of high pedestrian traffic. That's where you have your customers. That's where you have your tourists that are coming. So they were losing money, not being able to vend there. Our attorneys at Public Counsel came to the coalition space and said, we've been doing a lot of research with other attorneys, and we think we have a good case for suing the city.
We knew that we were on the right. We knew that the city had violated a lot of the rights of the vendors. We knew that the state law, the language of it, and the rights that it gave the vendors, and how it was being manipulated or denied.
So we filed the case, and we found 3 wonderful organizations: Community Power Collective, East LA Community Corporation, and Inclusive Action for the City.
We didn't find that the city had done any type of data, evidence collection, analysis. There was absolutely nothing in the record to justify their no vending zones. There's also a lot of favoritism that plays out in terms of favoring brick and mortar businesses over street vendors. And so we have these highly trafficked and frequented areas where they were ticketed, harassed, and it creates a lot of trauma, fear.
When we sat down with the city to say, okay, let's organize how we're going to do this, they came to us and they said, well, you know, we don't think we have a case. And they said, we want to settle. We thought that was wonderful. We wanted to settle, but it had to be on our terms.
Public Council's been involved in the campaign to legalize and decriminalize street vending for more than a decade. It's an important part of our mission, which is to advance economic, racial, and housing justice.
All of those vendors out there, they're part of the city of LA.
It just means a lot to people that you're in their corner, that you stand up for them, that you see them, and to be able to change our city for the better.
We brought in the best experts in the state so that who wrote 946. And they are also the people that are liaisons that work with cities all over California for coming up with plans that work for the vendors and work for the city.
We did meet with the attorney group and a handful of the vendors on May 20th and discuss some proposed modifications that they had in mind.
The lawyers suggested that they meet with us personally so we could hammer out an agreement.
And then we got written correspondence with them that actually proposed specific changes to the ordinance on June 19th.
The vendors were never contacted to make any kind of agreement with staff. So staff put out their proposal. We put out our proposal. They did not give us an inch. They just went with 4 feet by 8 foot. They said 4 feet by 8 foot. We said, how about 12 foot by 12 foot, which would be much smaller and give wider walkways.
Specifically, the ordinance proposes a 4 by 8, 32 square foot maximum vendor area for each vendor.
The next thing we know, we're having this vote tonight. We never heard back from them, not even acknowledgement that they had received the email. So we have gotten no opportunity to discuss this, to compromise.
There's two reasons I'm here today. One is to question whatever happened to the vendor proposals drawings that I submitted. I got a copy right here. I don't know if you can put it up. I was never contacted by the planning department to ask for my opinion, to ask for my information or nothing. So it was something that I worked very hard on it, and I really tried to make it work for you and us without causing any hardship on both of us.
Hi, my name is Kirk Brock. I've been a vendor for 35 years. I've been a street vendor down there for 3 years. The proposal I heard tonight is kind of a classic where we're not going to say you can't do it, but we're going to make a set of rules that are impossible for you to comply with. And that's the way we're going to get rid of you.
As you can see on the drawing, I spaced 10 by 10 spaces with a 48-inch space, even can be a 5-foot space between booths, back to back. And that gives the space for 20 to 24 vendors. We only proposed 2 vendors by the waterfront. I think that's minimum, as they're not invading the whole wall. And I also put some vendors on by the Stanton Center. So why isn't this taken in account? Why does it have to be their way and not try to work something out with us? The way they're doing it, they're only going to be able to fit, 8 vendors on that space?
The ordinance would also require that vendors be set back 25 feet from the center line of the recreation trail.
So it's a very extreme measurement, 25 feet from the center line of the bike path, which is about 19 feet long, further than what Caltrans requires as a safe distance from the center line of any obstruction on a type 1 bike path.
The ordinance also authorizes staff to develop a lottery system in the event that capacity becomes an issue for that area.
One of the things that they said is that a lottery system has been tried in many communities and is, their words, unmitigated disaster. There is a reservation system that is working very well in Santa Cruz. And there's even a liaison to the vendors that works with the vendors in Santa Cruz, and he is willing to come and advise staff on how that very successful reservation system works.
Thank you again, Levi, for the presentation. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment at this time.
The first reading of the initial proposal voted on by Council on April 15, 2025 wasn't so much emotional for vendors as it was a hard slap in the face. Your staff, without engaging in any valid negotiation with vendors, falsely presented council with a proposal based on what other businesses and business associations want. Vendors have been misrepresented by staff and our words manipulated. We don't want more enforcement. We want the current ordinance enforced on the weekends. I'm not sure what there is to misunderstand with we want the current ordinance enforced on weekends.
We've had no supervision whatsoever, no oversight whatsoever, and no enforcement whatsoever. Never have I seen anyone down there enforcing any of the current rules here.
The city manager claims that staff has been out to oversee vendors on the weekends. To my knowledge, staff has only been out when city council has requested staff to do so on the weekends.
I have a permit here that's good till April 15th next year. When I entered into this contractual agreement with the city of Monterey under this set of rules and regulations, I have complied with every rule and regulation there. The city has not complied with it by not doing anything. They have done nothing, absolutely nothing, and just let it be a free-for-all. What you need to do is start enforcing your own rules that are in place now. My question to you is, does the city of Monterey, do you or do you not honor your contracts? Because I have a contract with you, and you're not living up to your end of the contract. Well, I am living up to my end of the contract. And what do you propose to do about that? You're going to make a new set of rules that are impossible to comply with. It's ridiculous.
I usually don't come to this council. I am involved. I do follow rules. I'm a vendor there. I work at a restaurant. As a restaurant, I am a supervisor and I follow all the regulations, the health sanitations. And so when I come up vending, I take it very serious in following regulations and such. But now with all these new regulations that are trying to come into place now, it's kind of unrealistic. And I feel like the purpose or the idea is because you guys care, because you guys want to follow safety hazards or whatever. It's fine if it's realistic. We'll follow the rules.
Before I heard, the enforcement officer, he works 9 to 5, 8 to 5, 5 days a week. You need to authorize some overtime for him to come on Saturday and enforce the rules. And that would solve almost all the problems down there.
It's just, I feel like you guys need to come out and show us what you guys want, because I feel like we do follow all the rules.
Instead of making these ridiculous rules that are impossible to comply with and are economically unviable for us.
To be honest, the city council or the mayor, anybody could come down and say, hey, you guys, would you shrink your booths to be smaller and make the walkways wider? And we'd all just go voluntarily, yeah, we will. So I don't even know what we're doing here. It's except to just pick on us, because 4 foot by 8 foot, nobody can make a living off that. And why are we not compromising with vendors? Why aren't we coming up with something that's fair?
Anthony Lombardo, good evening. I'm supporting the staff recommendation, and I think these few pictures will show why it's needed. These photographs were taken one day last weekend. As you can see, the causeway from to the wharf is completely obstructed. There's no way to get to the railing at the harbor. There's no way to get to the monument at the front, and there's no way to walk to the wharf without walking and obstructing the.
India, if you say one more word, I'm going to ask the police to escort you out. That's it. No more. All right, please continue.
Sorry. Here's a photograph. You can see the vendor's structure and the person standing in the rec trail, obstructing the rec trail. And the other side, which was mentioned earlier, also has the vendors right up to the edge of the rec trail. Here's the picture taken from the reverse angle. You can see the edge of the rec trail, a small child in a cart obstructing the rec trail, and bicyclists walking through the crowd. Another picture of pedestrians completely obstructing the rec trail and the bicyclist being stopped. Another photograph of a bicyclist that's being, again, the same photo with the child being parked on the rec trail, with the bicyclist having to go into the opposite lane, so to speak. A group of individuals in front of the vendors blocking the trail. Another hazard that occurs results from structurally, I guess for a better word, unsound situations. Here's a tent or a umbrella sitting next to the vendor. Here's the same tent laying in the rec trail. The problem is these are not anchored in any way to the ground, and they blow into the rec trail. Here's a vendor holding down his structure, another one holding down the structure. So the ordinance proposed by the staff is definitely needed. The spacing will allow the public free and good access to and from the wharf and prevent the public safety hazards that exist from the condition that exists now. Because I don't think it's a matter of if someone's going to get hurt, it's really when that's going to happen.
As I understand it, the red brick on the Custom House side of the recreational trail is entirely state property. Some of the photos we saw actually had a table display by a vendor sitting on state property.
Potentially, yeah.
No, we saw.
It appeared that way.
Can you call me up?
Okay.
Have you called the planner? Let's call me up.
Okay. Let me get to my script here. Please do not disrupt the orderly conduct of these proceedings by continuing to speak out from the audience. If you continue, you will be ordered to leave the meeting.
Can't have somebody get up and do that and then say, not ask us the truth about this. We already been communicated with this city. This is serious.
I'm empathetic towards some of the response and what we're seeing tonight. It's hard because the city is looking at taking a direction that is taking away something that you've been entitled to. I've walked in this area and have been uncomfortable trying to get around during certain parts of the day. So I know from firsthand experience, so I'm not going to continue to belabor the point. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to approve staff recommendation. So it's moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's District 2 is what I represent, and one comment to Levi and planning. We really appreciate your input. The public input is over.
I will say, I'm in no way trying to disparage anybody, but I think the public comments around some of the attitude and approach from some of the vendors was clearly displayed tonight. And look, the opposition is still here being respectful and sitting. We have to be respectful of each other. And to me, it was very clear tonight in regards to how some people are treated. We have to treat people with respect, even if we disagree. So I'm going to go ahead and call the question.
Councilmember Rash?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
And Mayor Williamson?
That's a yes for me.
Monterey City Council unanimously passing changes to the city's sidewalk vending ordinance at their meeting tonight. Some of the proposed changes include reducing the required distance between vendors to 10 feet, restricting unattended equipment, and limiting display heights to between 28 and 60 inches. This reading of the ordinance was originally scheduled for May, but the issue was tabled to allow city staff to discuss terms with attorneys representing the Monterey Vendor Association. Despite this, vendors in public comment, they said they were frustrated by the changes, some saying the city made no compromises in their decision.
This is NPR.
With KAZU News, I'm Katie Brown. Monterey City Council has unanimously approved a local ordinance to reel in sidewalk vendors near Old Fisherman's Wharf. During a meeting on Tuesday, they agreed to a new framework that requires larger buffers between vendor booths and shrinks the space each vendor occupies, cutting the number of vendors by about half. India Weeks and her husband, James Burns, have operated Camouflage for 30 years, the last 6 in Monterey. They were both separately asked to leave the Tuesday meeting for speaking out of turn. In an interview, Weeks says she feels like local handcrafters are being pushed out.
Having the opportunity to make handmade goods and bring them to market has just been an incredible blessing for us. We're making something in America. We're making something with our own hands. People are buying it locally. We're spending our money locally. And this is really how communities can have more prosperity.
The city acknowledged that many of these sidewalk businesses rely on vending as their main source of income, but the ordinance cites public health and safety issues as drivers behind the preliminary reading. Burns says he feels businesses on the wharf are being prioritized over local craftspeople.
We've never had an injury, an accident, no insurance claims. We've never had a police action. We have never had the code officer ticket us in any way. So all of this came out of nowhere.
Nat Roji Nasathera is Monterey's assistant city manager and says the ordinance comes in light of the 4 million people who visit the area near the wharf each year.
There are other areas in the city that vendors can operate, but because this area is the most congested, this is the area that's being regulated.
A second reading of the ordinance is scheduled for August 5th. If it passes again, it would take effect September 4th.
Street vendors in Monterey are pushing back against proposed ordinances that bring tighter restrictions to their trade. KION's Madison Wilbur has more.
It makes me feel angry. What I got out of that was disgusting. Yeah, I'm scared.
Outcries coming from the vendors that line Old Fisherman's Wharf in Monterey as the discussion of new sidewalk ordinances continues. The proposed changes impact vendor spacing, display height, operating hours, and vending area dimensions, limiting the amount of merchandise they can display.
All of a sudden, they're going to cut my booth. You can look at the length of my booth. They've never complained about my length, and they want to cut it down to this much space right here, one table. One table. How in the world is anybody going to be able to pay their bills in Monterey County with one table of merchandise?
It's not enough. This is barely enough.
The city of Monterey said in their latest agenda that they are considering amendments to the sidewalk vending ordinance to align with state legislature and address local concerns like sighting safety and congestion. The vendors say they are confused because they claim there have never been any sighted issues before now, and rather the problem lies with the city for not enforcing the restrictions that are already in place.
We have not had any injuries, no insurance claims, no police action, no ticketing, and no blocking of any emergency vehicle. So there is no reason for the city they have no proof that we have caused any problems being here.
They've never monitored, they come twice a year, the code enforcement guy, and then we need more involvement from the city than twice a year.
What brings these vendors together is their desire to stay within the community.
People that come here, they like to visit with me. They know a lot of people know my name. People come from all across America and even other countries. Some people even come here once a year to visit my table.
Locals that we know, they come back all the time. Someone will stand here for 45 minutes to an hour and just talk.
Most of these vendors have been selling from anywhere to 10 to 20 years, and they say they want to work with the city. They just don't feel heard. We reached out to the city of Monterey, and they just got back saying, quote, these new regulations will create a better spacing between vendors as well as define the space they can use for vending. These are new regulations which help the city to better enforce safe distances from the populated trails. We have enforced our existing rules. These additional rules will be improving the overall sidewalk vending in this particular space. In Monterey, this is Madison Wilbur, KION News.
Anybody in the chamber wish to speak on this item, if you wouldn't mind standing to the left of the podium, or identify yourself by raising your hand. I don't see anybody sitting that has their hand raised, so we're going to leave it to 2 minutes.
My name is Mira Nisim. I'm a local resident. I grew up here in Monterey County, and I'm here with my 3 children, raising them in the valley where I grew up and trying the best that I can to survive in this economy. I just wanted to come again to speak to some issues. One is to follow up with my comments in March. I spoke to Nat and the sheriff, the local Monterey police came down, and we talked about the safety of the bike path. I haven't heard any updates on that, but I am still very concerned. I haven't seen any markings. I haven't seen any signage yet. If we really want to address health and safety down by the wharf area, that is the place to start. Also, just to share with you the sinking feeling that I had on Thursday to see that this ordinance was being put on the consent agenda. And I don't know if you're going to pull it from consent, but I did request that but I did request that the sidewalk ordinance be pulled from consent tonight. It is definitely a controversial issue, and I don't
If
feel
you have comments on that, I just ask you for them to be saved for that, and it will be pulled.
okay. I request that you pull it from the consent.
It'll be pulled.
Thank you very much. I've been really, making comments. I come here in person. I send them in. We are hardworking citizens. We're doing the best we can.
Yep. I just want to make sure you'll have another opportunity to come up and speak on that item specifically. So if you have anything else, by all means, feel free to finish your time.
I'm here to inform the city council that last week, the mayor and the city council were lied to, defrauded, and this is really just an incredible thing because you are our voted representative. So when somebody comes in here and makes false and fraudulent claims, it's really disturbing because you're defrauding every voter who voted for you. And so I'll call your attention to this photograph. So if you look right there, it looks like, I don't know, it looks like that pole is sitting right in the middle of the bike path. And you might think it looks like it's in the bike path, or you might not. But if somebody were to give you an untrue statement of how you're supposed to look at this photo, if they were to say the vendor's structure and the person standing in the rec trail and obstructing the rec trail.
Okay, so
now
I apologize. I apologize. Your comments are related to the item that's on the agenda.
So they're related to Tony Lombardo lying.
You to save those?
No, we're just talking about Tony Lombardo lying to the council.
Okay.
And this is the rebuttal that I wasn't allowed to have.
Please let me finish.
Yeah.
All right. Government code provides that members of the public may address the council on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council.
Okay.
Please proceed if you have comments under the jurisdiction of the council as it relates to general public comments for items that are on the agenda. So but I just want you to follow the process like everybody else has to, please.
This photo was shown last week to the city council, and it's saying that bikes and pedestrians are on a bike path, when in fact, if you see on the ground, it says it's a mixed-use bike path. Like, that needs to be shown. And then here it shows it's a mixed-use bike path. So there is no crowding of the bike path, supposedly. This is what the bike path actually looks like. And so that's an actual real photo. This is a real photo of how there's access to the...
Okay, same thing. I'm gonna, listen, you guys are, you're taking a stretch too far. It's not within the purview of general public comments. You're gonna have your time to talk on this topic. But it's not in front of us right now. So if you don't have general public comments for items that are not on today's agenda, then I'm just gonna ask you to please wait until that item is pulled from the consent. Please wait until that item is pulled from the consent. And then you'll be able to speak on that item.
And Tony Lombardo was designated to be the last speaker, and then we were not able to rebut any of his photos.
Okay.
That were all
Okay. All right.
I'm saying that's a process.
Okay. I'm gonna start reading my script again if you don't. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close general public comment and we will go to consent. There's been a request to pull items 3. I'm sorry, this is a new process that we're following here. Yeah. With that, we will move to item 3, second reading of the sidewalk vending ordinance update. And with that, I'll pass it to Hans for staff presentation.
Or do you want to just jump into the taking public comment?
Could we have a 1-minute recap?
Sure. 1-minute version. As you recall from our last meeting, we introduced the first reading of the sidewalk vending ordinance. The actual operational changes had to do with the size allocated to each individual vendor, which was 4x8, 32 square foot area. And then also some display limitations for the display of goods between 28 inches and 60 inches from the ground.
All right, we're going to open it up for public comment. And we're going to go ahead and limit it to 2 minutes.
Sadly, today, we live in a society where rich people oppress the poor and trying to take away everything they can from them, and they don't even feel sad about it.
I really feel like it's a bully tactic to see Mr. Lombardo and Mr. Shape here at each meeting, especially last time when you referred to them as the opposition.
From the very beginning, when the law for street vendors came into effect, business owners from the wharf fought against it. Although at that time, we only had 4 vendors and a few tables.
My heart sank. Like, I was thinking that this was for public safety, but it looks like there's sides. We have the people that are fighting for their jobs.
What you're proposing doesn't help safety. That's just a cover for something else. Taking us to one table, that is an extreme change and unfair, and it's just going to crash our business, and you guys know that willingly.
I was part of a team of us that came together and made some revisions. We didn't hear anything once we gave our revisions, and none of them are reflected in this second ordinance draft.
SB 946 is clearly stated that competing businesses may not have any say or influence in determining the validity of safety concern or any proposed change that affects vendors. Yet that's exactly what's happening.
So section 12 of the proposed ordinance, 8x4 size dimension, is purposely crafted to drive sidewalk vendors out of business.
It clearly shows that the safety issue that we face today is an excuse.
None of the existing permit holders can do enough business with such strict restraints, and it has no supportive health or safety data.
It's been painfully clear that the street vendors are being used as scapegoats.
We had no issues with police, no issues with fire department or ambulance. There are no records of anyone being hurt or blocked on or between our booths.
The real safety hazard has been ignored. There are 2 blind corners at the eastbound lanes of the bike and pedestrian path that constantly put people at risk.
And I ask that the bike path be marked because that is the real safety issue here.
We have resources that could be helping the Monterey Police Department's bicycle patrol unit. Where are they? Instead of better enforcement or visibility, we're being handed ordinance changes that feel like a red herring meant to distract from the city's lack of real action.
Section 15 says we have to be 10 feet away. ADA says we have to be 4 feet away from each other. Again, no objective health and safety data.
What you have is a handful of business owners who don't want competition, and you're letting them dictate policy. And that is a clear conflict of interest.
If we are not in competition, none of us are selling food.
The Wharf Association, made up of business owners who compete with us, is influencing your decision. That's illegal. That is a violation of our rights.
The Wharf Association hired a photographer lurking around in our area to find fault with the vendors to make the case. Well, I rest my case because as you can see on this picture, there is enough space between the vendors so that people can walk around safely.
We asked for a reasonable space, like 10 by 10 foot, that we can actually make a living.
Amendment 21 says we have to be 25 feet off the center line of the rec trail, which is far beyond Class 1 bike trail requirements for a safe shoulder. Permanent above ground structures already violate that requirement.
We asked for 5 to 10 feet between us, which is more than ADA regulations. We asked for reasonable revisions.
There were rendering words like, it is not if an accident will happen, it is about when an accident will happen. It's absurd.
You can't use conjecture. Remember, Tony and Bardo said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That's called conjecture. See, if you actually have a police report that says something happened, that's called data.
Are we going to stop people from driving a car or flying an airplane because it is when an accident will happen? Really?
Law, you can't say if, you have to say it did happen.
SB 946 allows cities to impose restrictions based on safety, health, and welfare. The law prohibits, let me say that again, prohibits restrictions based on subjective concerns like community animosity or economic competition.
The state passed SB 946 to protect sidewalk vendors from economic animus.
The real issue is prejudice against street vendors coupled with a conflict of interest between the council and the worst brick and mortar business.
Wendy Brickman, Chris Shake, Tony Lombardo, this is not objective health and safety. These people are prejudiced. You can go back to August 6th last year, and they were at the very first meeting when they were coming after us with economic animus because they didn't know to change their dialogue.
Hi, Chris, we can hear you.
Okay. The City of Monterey's sidewalk vending and general regulations of the municipal code. Clearly, the current regulations are not working and are in need of reform to protect the financial health of the neighboring waterfront businesses. I respectfully ask you to revise your current general sidewalk vending regulations that would include a limit on how many vendors can operate at one time in a specific mapped out area that is marked where they can set up for business. The statement last meeting that the opposition is still here being respectful and still is nice, but it is illegal.
We were treated to another photo and we were given some more phony testimony. Quote, as you can see, the causeway from now to the wharf is completely obstructed. There's no way to get to the railing or the harbor. There's no way to go through without obstructing the bike path. End quote. This is a manipulative picture taking a tight shot at a weird angle to make it look like there's no pathway there, when in fact, this is what the pathway looks like. From a normal angle, there's a 16-foot pathway. So the phony pictures accompanied with the phony testimony was compelling. I'll give you that.
So again, this is just arbitrary regulations designed to harm sidewalk vendors with no health and safety data.
SB 946 was put into place to protect vendors from this kind of discrimination. I'm asking you to pull this from the agenda and please reach down in your heart and take this to the table again and let us figure out something different than 8x4. It's just can't have anything down. I put a lot to sell out there.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go to our callers on Zoom.
We have never really had a chance to kind of ask questions to Levi, such as how many square feet are we talking about currently is the space? And what is it being reduced down to? I believe it's like an 85% reduction, which is very, very unfair for a business such as me that's been there for 7 years. I think Ed brought it up about, he had mentioned they need 17 feet of clearance for the emergency vehicles, when in fact, at the entrance gate to the emergency lane, it's only 11 and a half feet wide. Something's not adding up.
Offer staff an opportunity to jump in, answer any questions that may have come up. I heard that last one there around the previous space requirements versus the new requirements.
Sure. I don't have exact dimensions of what the existing space is out there because it's not been measured.
Listen, reflecting on my comments from last time and since then, I'm going to support the recommendation to move forward with the staff proposal. It's unfortunate that it's disappointing to see how we got here and the fact that there wasn't a greater opportunity to collaborate and find common ground. So this isn't a time to provide additional public comment. So please don't say anything or I'm going to ask you to leave. There's no additional time for public comment on this item. No, there's no point. There's not an opportunity. This is not an opportunity. It depends on when you take a picture. I mean, we looked at pictures of all types and sometimes it's not as crowded as others. So for all those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff recommendation. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Sarah Rubin here, reflecting on something I've observed everywhere I've traveled in the world. People selling stuff, even if it's just a little bit of stuff from anywhere. Maybe it is commerce that unites us as humans. I found myself thinking, put people in a place and they will find something to sell even on a little patch of sidewalk or a cart or a bag. James Burns has had a similar thought. His handcrafters are the beginning of civilization. Sidewalk vendors exist everywhere in the world but the United States because corporations are shooting for monopoly. Burns is a tie-dye artist who works with his wife, India Weeks, to sell their wares in Monterey at the foot of Fisherman's Wharf. Before California decriminalized sidewalk vending in 2018 with Senate Bill 946, Burns and Weeks would travel a circuit of craft fairs in the Bay Area and beyond. The city of Monterey followed the state legislation in 2019 with a local ordinance, and since then, Burns and Weeks have made their living locally. They say it's hard work, the setup and takedown take time, plus being in the elements. The concept caught on with other sidewalk vendors setting up. Burns and Weeks say some are not healthy enough to hold regular jobs. This movable business enables them to work only when they feel well. For many, it's the only cost-effective way to run a retail business. Rents are high and online sales require packaging and digital savvy. And there's a culture that vendors like Burns have found to be meaningful. Some customers stay and chat for an hour. It all sounds glorious, and in many ways it is. But there's been another truth that members of Monterey City Council and nearby business owners on Fisherman's Wharf and Cannery Row, the business owners have voiced concerns about competition. Others have raised concerns about obstructing pedestrian and bicycle travel through the area, especially on summer weekends. Sidewalk vendors united in opposition to the amendments, which limit the size and configuration of vendors in the area, shrinking the square footage of each, increasing the buffer area between vendors, and forbidding customer seating and hanging clothes. Tuesday night, despite vociferous opposition from vendors, including Weeks and Burns, City Council voted 5-0 to approve the new ordinance. The square footage requirements would limit the number of vendors in the area to 13. Burns says he and others have no plans to comply. He is basically daring the city to enforce the new restrictions. He argues the new restrictions violate SB 946. Whether or not it comes to that remains to be seen. I, for one, am glad we've moved beyond an all-out prohibition on sidewalk vendors. Thanks to SB 946, it adds color, variety, and personality to retail and lowers the cost barriers to entry.
Hello, my name's Brian. I'm a caricature artist. I worked at Fisherman's Wharf since like 2012. My old boss, Bayla, a lot of you knew her as Gypsy. She used to rent out to the Fisherman's Wharf for years until 2018 when they were just asking for too much money from her and she just couldn't keep up anymore. So the business had to split up. So I started vending in 2020 along with everyone else back here. And I've got to say, everybody who I talk to there loves us. They love what we add to Monterey. They love all of the like handmade art that we sell to them. So it's really self-destructive that you guys are trying to limit us. You're really just shooting yourself in the foot with this. Like, we've been here for years. We've never done anything wrong. We're a huge part of the community. Everyone loves us. And without us, the people aren't going to have as many reasons to come down to Monterey and spend their money. They're probably just going to go to San Jose or San Francisco or somewhere else with a cooler wharf with more artists. So you cannot let this happen. You can't let us go. You can't let us go like that.
As a permit-holding, insurance-carrying sidewalk vendor down at the wharf, even though every permit holder has a registered email, neither the planning staff nor the city has issued any instructions about the implementation of the new sidewalk ordinance.
Since the ordinance passed, the planning department has not sent any information to the vendors regarding the ordinance, restating the new rules. There has been no plan. Myself and several other vendors have tried to go to the planning department, talk to the planning department, ask about enforcement and what's going to happen and if there's a lottery system, etc.
With city code, cities usually want voluntary compliance. But it is obvious that Monterey wants to inflict as much hardship on vendors as possible.
These are all the vendors that required strict regulation today. There were 0. Here is the new ordinance maximum vendor size, and that's the tomb the city has given me for my business to be buried in.
There's 5,000 square feet available, and it's going to be reduced by 90% removal of the space available.
There are a total now of 10 vendor spots available. 2 of them have been mismeasured and are on state property, so that will leave 8 once they clarify that measuring mistake.
And also there's only 10 spots, whereas you guys had made, you had taken more time to look into things and give us a little bit more, less space between us to supposedly provide more places, but there's only 10 spots, whereas was pretty sure when you guys voted it in, it was based on 13 to 15 spots.
And having such a small space available after the 4th is unfair, it's unreasonable.
This has been called a dysfunctional amount of space, and I would have to agree.
A few weeks ago, Ed Smith made a comment that it was his opinion that the cross traffic from one side of the area of the trail to the other was dangerous without any factual basis, just his opinion.
Going over the council meeting in which bike rental permit restrictions were lifted, Ed Smith repeatedly made the point that safety on the bike path justified a study. And it was agreed by the majority of the council that it was the high-speed e-bikes that were the real threat to health and safety. Tyler said he suspected the high speeders were all locals, and it was they who were causing the rec trail to be unsafe, not tourists on bikes. It was proposed that there be a speed limit like Pacific Grove had done, and some bike speed enforcement be done but the mayor said the police department did not have the resources.
And the businesses that this whole subject matter started from, attacking my personal business is unfair again and should not have been considered as a way to address or adapt these concerns.
So where are the financial resources coming from to enforce vending regulations? We talked to the harbor master. He said he has no interest in enforcing land use codes on vendors. That's not his jurisdiction. It's been heard that Chris Shake is volunteering to pay for the city's cost of enforcement. And this was supposed to be a decision made because of health and safety. And that's showing some serious economic animus that he's saying, look, if it's going to cost more than the city can afford, I'll pay for it, And and he's a Wharf Business Association. So we know what's really going on here.
We've heard it suggested that we're only drawn to the wharf because of the crowds. Yet in the same breath, we're being blamed for the congestion. However, we are simultaneously benefiting from the foot traffic and being accused of endangering pedestrians by supposedly creating it. The contradiction is frustrating. More importantly, it is unfair.
And when I counted this weekend, the busiest weekend of the year, there was 26 vendors on Sunday and 20 on Monday. And now there's only 10 spots with, 30% of our original display potential. I mean, this is catastrophic financially for those of us that are working hard and have been doing this job.
There's no health and safety standards. It's obviously just the wharf businesses lined up against us.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and close general public comment. And just for awareness, we don't engage on topics that are brought up during the general public comment because it's not agendized. So feel free to follow up, back up with us in writing. I know staff was here taking notes too. I understand that there was some follow-up that was being requested there. So with that, we will go ahead and transition.